Good afternoon. You're very welcome to the program. सुनने वालों को सिराज ज़ैदी का बहुत बहुत प्यार भरा आदाब नमस्कार and good afternoon. You're very welcome to the program. You're listening to Apna Radio broadcasting at 93.9 Dublin South FM. Yes, that is what I do every Thursday, and I hope you'll be listening me anywhere in the world, wherever you are listening me in the world, whether it's Dubai, London, New York, Boston. Yes, in Boston too, so a lot of listenership. And of course, Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Hyderabad, wherever you are in India, you're listening me, and I am with you in my spirit. Not in my presence, but my voice is with you. And I was listening the other day, there was a program called on Radio Garden, a Jaipur radio, in fact, and they was keep saying that, Aapki awaaz, aapki pehchan. Bana ke bolna. This is not what a radio voice should be. Radio voice should be. Anyway, I don't want to go into analysis of that. There's a plenty of material going on here, as usual. So Charmain is here to talk about the news of this week in India, what's happening in India this week. So Charmain, you take it away.
Good afternoon. I'm Charmain Colvin, and you are listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM. On India this week, US President Donald Trump said on Wednesday that he had prevented a war between India and Pakistan this year by threatening both nations with 250% tariffs, the highest he has mentioned on any country. If you look at India and Pakistan, they were going at it, Trump said at the Asia-Pacific Summit in South Korea. 7 planes were shot down. They were really starting to go. Trump said he called Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Pakistan's leaders to say that Washington would halt trade and impose the massive tariffs if the fighting that briefly flared up in May continued. Trump has previously made similar assertions about warning both countries of a halt in trade during the military strikes, assertions that India has dismissed. India's foreign ministry had previously said that Modi confronted Trump during a phone call between the two leaders in June, saying no discussion about US-India trade or US mediation took place during the 4-day conflict. New Delhi says the decision to cease hostilities was taken following a request from Pakistan. Pakistan thanked Trump for playing a mediating role and nominated him for a Nobel Prize for stopping the war. Trump said both sides initially resisted his call for a ceasefire, but later backed down. Washington has subsequently imposed punitive tariffs of up to 50% on certain Indian goods, including an additional 25% levy from August the 27th over New Delhi's continued purchases of Russian oil, even as both sides hold talks on a trade deal. Trump has lowered Pakistan tariffs to 19% from an initial 29%. A year after the death of Ratan Tata, the Tata Group, a gigantic Indian salt-to-steel conglomerate, which he steered into a global modern technologically advanced enterprise, finds itself facing a plethora of crisis. The business empire, which owns iconic British brands such as Jaguar Land Rover and Tetley Tea and makes the iPhone for Apple in India, is yet again a divided house. For months, a boardroom power battle between trustees has exposed internal rifts that forced the government to step in and prevent a repeat of the very public legal tangle that engulfed the Tata Empire in 2016, when its former chairman, Cyrus Mistry, was ousted from the group. While ministers in Delhi appeared to have brokered an uneasy truce weeks ago, latest reports suggest that Melli Mistry, a close confidant of Ratan Tata and a trustee on the board of Tata Trusts, has been ousted from his position. The latest rift comes at a time when the Tatars are facing severe business headwinds, while trying to expand into new growth areas like semiconductors and electric vehicles, as well as attempting to revive Air India, the ailing carrier they bought from the government in 2021, following a tragic crash earlier this year. An Indian minister's comment that 2 female Australian cricketers who were touched inappropriately last week should have informed authorities before leaving their hotel has sparked a row, with many accusing him of victim blaming. The incident occurred in Indore in Madhya Pradesh state on Thursday as the players were walking to a cafe. Police said the man who harassed them has been arrested. India's cricket board condemned the incident, which has sparked an outpouring of anger globally. But 𝐀𝐩𝐧𝐚, a state minister, raked up a controversy by saying this was a lesson for authorities as well as the players, who should have informed the security or administration before going out. Street harassment of women in India is rampant, but Thursday's incident made headlines as it involved international players visiting the country for a high-profile tournament, the Women's World Cup. Cricket Australia said in a statement that the players were approached and touched inappropriately by a motorcyclist the morning after Australia had beaten England. The Board of Control for Cricket in India was quick to condemn the harassment, calling it a deeply regrettable and isolated incident. It also vowed to review the existing safety protocols and strengthen them if necessary to ensure such incidents are not repeated. Cricket legend Sunil Gavaskar demanded swift punishment for the man who harassed the players. "You lock him up and throw the keys away. That's the only way such criminals should be treated," he told India Today TV channel. This is not the first time Vijay Vegaya has made news for statements that have been construed by many as being offensive to women. A few months back, he had made headlines for saying he didn't like women wearing short or revealing clothes, and that in the past he'd refused to take photographs with them. A number of children and young adults from at least 5 states across northern India have suffered serious eye injuries from using the same kind of device, called carbide guns, during Diwali. The carbide gun, a rudimentary device, uses calcium carbide in a plastic pipe and gives dramatic results, a loud blast that sounds like a gunshot, accompanied by fiery sparks. But the explosion is unpredictable and often delayed. Officials claim that many of the injuries occurred when children peeped inside the pipe to check just as the blast happened. The sale and purchase of calcium carbide is regulated in India, but farmers and shopkeepers often use it to artificially ripen fruit. Police officials also say the crude guns are sometimes used to scare away animals from fields. But many in India had not heard of these guns until last week, when a spate of injuries was reported after Diwali. Officials said these devices began flooding local markets in northern India after viral social media videos showed them being used as firecrackers. More than 100 cases of carbide gun-related eye injuries have been reported in Madhya Pradesh's Bhopal district alone, with at least 15 requiring surgery. Another 100 cases have been reported from 3 other districts. In Bihar state, 170 cases have been reported, with 40 requiring surgery. The actual numbers are likely to be higher, experts say. Calcium carbide is a regulated substance in India. Its possession, use and manufacturing are controlled by law because of its harmful effects and potential for abuse. A government official in Bhopal said that calcium carbide is still widely used to artificially ripen fruit, despite a federal ban, as it contains traces of poisonous substances. And finally, after more than half a century, 𝐤𝐤𝐽, India's oldest rebel, has come home. Now 91, Mr. 𝐤𝐽 is the General Secretary of the National Socialist Council of Nagaland, or NSCN, the most powerful of the Naga insurgent factions that once fought the Indian state in one of Asia's longest-running rebellions, though today the organisation is often regarded as a shadow of its former self. His supporters see him as a keeper of a demand India has never recognised, a separate state for Naga people. His critics remember something else, a movement accused of targeted killings and running a parallel government in Nagaland through taxes, money called extortion. Allegations the NSCN denies. 𝐤𝐽's demand for a separate Naga flag and constitution remains a stumbling block. In an interview in 2020, 𝐤𝐽 told journalist Karan Thapar the Nagas will never be part of the Indian Union nor accept its constitution. There can be no solution without our flag and our constitution. The Indian government has offered greater autonomy, but rejects any concession implying sovereignty. And that's all from me. You have been listening to Apna Radio 93.9 Dublin South FM.
Thank you very much indeed, Charmain, for a beautiful news item that you have put together. And Naga people indeed are the very different people than the rest of India. In fact, V.S. Naipaul has written a book called The 1,000 Mutiny Waiting to Happen years ago, and the book is still available if those who are interested in knowing the geopolitics of India itself, because it's a country of contradiction, country of many languages, many religions, though the dominant Hindu religion is now officially dominating and endorsed by the BJP, the ruling BJP party, who is enforcing right, left, and center what we call it Hindutva. Hindutva means their version of Hindu religion. That is not the actual religion, but their version of that, which is enemy of Muslims, enemy of other religions. They're trying to persecute other people. They're trying to do lots of damages and all that. But anyway, that's V.S. Naples' book called Thousand Mutiny Waiting to Happen in India. And Nagaland, Mizoram, Assam, these are all examples of all of that is happening in India regularly. Because of this large size of the country, you don't really understand what's going on in the pockets of India here, there, and everywhere. But what is going on in the world? Donald Trump, hello. I mean, he never goes away from the controversy. I mean, he never goes away with the news in a fact that, claiming to be the peacemaker and all that, with a carrot and a stick kind of policy, threatening 250% tariff, terrorizing the Indians, and then, creating a sort of like a peace. But anyway, there was obviously there was 3-day war. It's called the storm in a teacup. And I call it a storm in a teacup in a way, but it killed many people. It destroys certain property. That's what the war does. That's what the missiles do. And now the war is not a war of soldiers running after each other, confronting each other face to face with Kalashnikov and rifle. Today's war is missiles, ballistic missiles, and drones, which can be shot from the different distance and indeed can destroy quite a lot of things. So today's war, I'll come back to it sometime to talk about what's going on in our European turf, because there are a lot of things happening on the European turf either. But there are a few things that I'm going to talk about it today, and some things are really serious because when it comes to Donald Trump and how he is shaping the world, audacity of him is in contemplating the third term. Now, that is beyond beggar's belief that could happen. But then again, who knows? The way democracy has turned its head over the ordinary people. Ordinary people have no control over who would run the country, as it happened in India. And in India, blatant, the entire machinery operation, since, from voting machines to all the way up to the parliament and building a new parliament, and all of that is culminating into the fact that they just want to continue in power. And that is the bottom line, that the politicians, the political parties have learned how to be in power all the time. And in a worst scenario case, just kill your own people, create a war somewhere in the corner, accuse the neighboring country for doing that, and, win the hearts and minds of people who will vote you straight away. That's the kind of filthy, dirty techniques that has been played right, left, and center. But what's happening here at the global scale and what's happening in Gaza is something that we promise you to come back to it. And certainly Sharad is here to talk about a significant, deterioration of, not the deterioration, not a proper, implementation of the so-called hush and one-sided, lopsided, wrong ceasefire. And ceasefire is because of it's a matter of, obviously these days, because the talk is going on for Nobel Peace Prize. And so therefore, Donald Trump is desperate to get a peace prize. See, this psyche of getting awards and peace awards and leaving legacy is so humanly driven that certain individuals and humans I know very well who are award hungry. They just want award for no reward. For doing no job as important as it should have been to reward. But this whole creation of award mentality, that who creates award, why they get created, and what does it bring to that individual? Perhaps the popularity, perhaps the hoodwinking of the the near and dear people who really are the people around them. And if they are in any business, their business number goes up, and they are sort of, being viewed as the so-called important people. But it happens in every industry. All industries do have this nonsense award ceremonies and award things, including ourselves. Ironically, we created, but we don't create it in the film festival, in our film festival award ceremony, because awards, as I said, is something appreciation of those who've done hard work, those who've made films, whether it's short films, whether it's feature films, whether it's documentary, and they have participated in the film festival. So I reward them for that. It's not a competition. It's just the recognition of their work and acknowledging the fact that they are the people who have taken initiative and succeeded in completing a film. Because completing a film from the concept right up to the finished product is a mammoth task. It's no ordinary task. And if you're not part of the film industry, if you do not belong to the industry, it's just a uphill battle. It's a task that you do not understand and appreciate how much work goes into it to make it. Even a short film, forget about the feature film. But that's what it is. And for that reason, I particularly honor those who participate. I honor those in different categories. And by the way, this is a category of our own festival. And yesterday, in fact, was the birthday of one of the best participant of the 16th Indian Film Festival of Ireland, 𝐀𝐩𝐧𝐚 𝐑𝐚𝐲, who came all the way from Netherlands, from Holland, to participate into the 16th Indian Film Festival of Ireland. And we have offered her a delectable award for that. So yes, awards do carry a lot of weight. And so happy birthday, 𝐀𝐩𝐧𝐚, wherever you are, and celebrating it. And we do try to maintain the relationship with our participants who visited us. Anyway, Sharad is here to talk about a fantastic issue of what's happening around the ceasefire in Gaza, which is a joke. And let's listen to what he has to say.
There is a ceasefire in Gaza, and the so-called Trump plan, publicized as a framework for lasting peace, it actually collapses under scrutiny. It is neither an agreement nor a roadmap, but it looks like a platform of only vagueness, which is resting on one presumption, and that is the Israeli discretion. So here are 10 core deficiencies which we are able to pick out. Like, there is no clarity as to who the other signatories are: Qatar, Turkey, Egypt, others. There is no mechanism for appointing Gaza's technocratic administrator. We know they are trying to appoint the alleged terrorist called Tony Blair, former Prime Minister of Britain, as one of the administrators. So what is the mechanism? There is no legal framework to govern the process. Usually there is some international law which is being mentioned, or it is under some UN observation. That is not mentioned in the 20-point program that Trump is talking about. No interpretive body to resolve dispute. We are trying to solve a dispute. And when we are having a negotiation, we are implementing something in a conflict zone. Obviously, there are going to be contests. There are going to be disputes. Who is going to interpret this particular framework that is not mentioned in this peace plan? There is no measurable enforcement, if at all, violation of enforcement. If you remember the Oslo Accord, it failed because there was no enforcement clause. There was no article to measure how the peace plan would go forward. So in this peace plan too, there is no enforcement measurements that is laid down. There are no reciprocal guarantees to bind the discretion and the power balance of Israel. There are no guarantees. Finally, crucially, there is no time bound or an objective criteria for Israelis' withdrawal. Today, Israel is holding on to 58% of the Gaza Strip, which itself is contested. So there is a contest over contest. Now, this ceasefire plan institutionalizes ambiguity And if you see the language of Article 16 in this 20-point program, that withdrawal depends on milestones linked to demilitarization agreed by Israel, the ISF, which is going to be the transitional force, and the US. This statement actually makes it one-sided peace ceasefire plan. It actually gives grants to Israel as a veto. And withdrawal can be delayed indefinitely under the pretext of security. So who decides the security? Who decides that Israel has to withdraw now? And this, like I said, actually mirrors the flaw of the Oslo Accord. If you remember Yitzhak Rabin and Yasser Arafat, the ceasefire then meant well. It was in good faith. But then there was no enforcement measures. There were no dispute resolution bodies. So that is the flaw again we are seeing in the Trump administration's imposed ceasefire plan. With this in light, we will now start to look at the other measures. Broadly, what this ceasefire mean and what currently the Gaza and the Middle East looks like. So in August 2025, a ceasefire basic principles were laid out that there would be disarming of Hamas, the returning of hostages, demilitarization of Gaza, and retaining Israeli security control while continuing to install an alternative administration in Gaza. These were principles and they look simple, but then each of them is riddled with flaws. They are only creating imbalances. Now Gaza's demilitarization is paired with Israel's expanded control. Alternative administration is a euphemism for indirect occupation. And the supposed roadmap, it actually doubles to a blueprint for subjugation. Currently, the human toll is 62,000 Palestinians killed and 160,000 are injured. And Gaza is going through famine. And this is confirmed by the UN assessment. Like I said, Israel, meanwhile, it retains 58% of Gaza's territory. And this territory that Israel is holding on is mostly the arable land. So Gazans do not have a place to grow their own food, which in turn makes them dependent on import of food or foreign aid. And that is where the power shifts, the imbalance, and the true spirit of ceasefire is seriously wrong. There is also an asymmetry of prisoner exchange. Israel holds over 10,000 Palestinian prisoners. Now they are releasing 1,700 as part of the ceasefire. Earlier they had released 1,300 about. Among them are men and those who have been imprisoned in 1990s. And this is a grim reminder of how long the machinery of Israeli detention is against the peace in the region. There is something called administrative detention, and in that the Israeli government can actually detain and imprison women, children, men at will, and they do not have a proper justice system in order to take up the cases of such a large number of detainees. There is no voice to these people who are under administrative detention and absurd detention. Now here is the contradiction within the peace plan itself. The agreement claims that no one should be forced to leave Gaza. That's a good principle. But then simultaneously it demands that Hamas members leave Gaza to the country of their choice. On one side, the agreement claims that no one should be forced to leave Gaza. Yet, simultaneously, it demands that members of Hamas leave Gaza. And then the same clause goes on to call for peaceful coexistence to be imposed with unilateral disarmament. I don't know how this peace plan has been drawn up, even by the simple logic. If you read through those 20 points, you will find that the entire peace depends on one thing. That is, Hamas must surrender its weapon, while Israeli army can hold on to its sophisticated weapons of mass destruction, and its capability of harming the civilian population. In spirit, it looks like the Palestinians have to comply, but it is not a mutual consent. So therefore, we are saying that this is not about reconciliation, but one-sided humiliation, enforced peace under the shadow of overwhelming force of US, Israel, and the other parties involved. This is not a truce. This is not a victory. If you look, the new order political order of how the Gaza would look like, how the Middle East would look like. It's an elite-driven consensus around stability, commerce, and managed modernization. They want to build a Riviera. There has to be a property and real estate development in Gaza. So the great ideological project that once animated this region of Middle East, the political Islam, the Arabism, the moral politics of liberation of Palestine, now this is seemingly quietly buried under the rubbles of Gaza. So this is not Hamas' defeat, but it looks like there is an attempt for political disqualification of an active player in the region. Somewhere, the links are to the failure of Arab Spring or success of Arab Spring, where the regional monarchies and the militarized republics, they have adopted a doctrine of stability first. And that is where the pressure is put to subdue the political side of the Islam. And in this stability comes in the mega project and the modernization drive of Gaza. Now this new doctrine, the political Islam, is cast in the same category as militias and insurgent groups, tagged as disruptive, uncontrollables. So the narrative has moved from the political liberation of Gaza to modernization of Gaza. And that is where the fundamental problem is. Arabism, which actually formed the early politics in the region, has now been fearful of the rise of political Islam and a threat to their power. Therefore, there is a shift away from the real cause of Gaza. There is another politics which has gone in about the recognition of the Palestinian state. Now, what this has done is, this has put an end to the occupier status of Israel. And instead, it has given a boundary to the so-called state of Palestine. Now, the contradiction is that originally it was Palestine, mandate of Palestine. Then there is Israeli occupation with the settlements. And now, all over in a recycling, there is a state of Palestine, which is being recognized across the world by 156 countries. So there is a recycling of recognition, derecognition, and re-recognition of state of Palestine. But then this has set a boundary, and therefore now no more Israel is an occupier of state of Palestine, the original state of Palestine. Recognizing Palestine from outside other than Israel and US has given a status, sense of control to the people of Palestine. How far it reaches the ground and it actually liberates people of Gaza, that remains to be seen. But this is a political maneuver that has gone on in the background. As of now, the situation is grim. As of yesterday, more than 100 Gazans were killed in the Israeli attack. Hostage bodies have not been exchanged, which is really shame on the sense of humanity. Nobody is raising its voice against degradation of humanity. But then it is what it is. At the start of the ceasefire, about 600 aid trucks were to enter Gaza unconditionally, which are now less than 300 or even still fewer. And Israel seems to be in control to regulate the supply. There is scarcity of food, medicine, fuel. The northern Gaza remains unreachable despite there are some cleared up roads. This is for simple reasons that many NGOs who want to come to Gaza to help people out, they are paralyzed by new Israeli registration demands. And this is a theater of regulation, an economy of dependence that is being curated by the occupation. So this is a one-sided ceasefire, and this is not going to work. The real actors, the real players are not getting involved in a non-violent way in this agreement. And therefore, there will be major issues in future, and I wouldn't be surprised if this ceasefire fails. I wish better sense prevail and somebody starts to talk about the equality in this agreement, about the non-violent and peaceful distribution of power among the Israelis, among the Gaza, among the peaceful-headed Hamas, and the fear that tomorrow the West Bank would not be annexed by Israel. That has to be eliminated. Very troubling times, very disturbing times, but then I hope peace comes to the region soon. We'll keep you updated. Till then, stay safe, stay informed, and dutifully ask questions. Bye for now.
Dublin South FM. You wouldn't buy a car without knowing its history. So why would you buy a story without knowing who's telling it? Come here and I tell you. It's not always easy to verify what you see, read or hear. But now there's help. Visit www.bemediasmart.ie. Stop, think, check. Be Media Smart. Brought to you by Media Literacy Ireland, supported by RTE.
93.9 Dublin South FM.
Indeed, welcome back to the programme. That is 93.9 Dublin South FM, and what a terrific, and I say terrific 3 times, analysis on the farcical so-called peace deal that Donald Trump has imposed upon the Palestinians, and indeed, making a false statements that truce has been achieved and all the rest of it, and and bombarding and going on in the last 2-3 days since this so-called farcical peace process is in place. It's not in place at all. And how can you actually do such a thing by preconditioning and strings attached to all this thing that is going to be, if you give it up your arms, you give it up. See, what they're trying to do, as Sharad has mentioned, is this Riviera project. That is the project of Jared Kushner, and Donald Trump's family members are benefiting from this particular deal if they can actually remove and kill as many people remaining. I mean, imagine 2 million people when these 2 years ago war started. There were 2 million people. Infrastructure was intact in Gaza and in West Bank and all that. Hospitals were there, schools were there, and 2 million people were actually, living there. Now it's been reduced to less than 1 million, in fact, and people have displaced, people have killed right, left, and center. On one occasion, I counted every day on the television screen in the news time. Every day there was an average of 100 and 150 people have been bombarded, killed by the Israeli forces. And nobody has actually dared to say any this is the frustrating thing, is that nobody has got spine in their back to get up and to risk whatever they have in order to complain about it. And that is the saddest of the sad aspect of humanity that we are facing at the moment, that one country can brutally continue to exercise their brutality over helpless, civilian population without any food, without any shelter. And this is exactly what is going on, killing people who are basically breathing somehow, I don't know what air they're breathing, because the rubble is their homes. The homes have been reduced to rubbles, and they're demanding that, give back the hostages. How can you give them hostages when you were bombing them at the top of that? So some of them would be buried in the rubble, and they have no diggers, they have no machineries to even discover that. And that is horrendous. I think the history will never forgive this kind of behavior of Netanyahu and Israeli occupiers, the Zionist state, I call it. It's not a state, it's just an occupier, Zionist occupiers of a Palestinian land. But who can rise against them? Americans can, but the Americans will not, because the current regime in America is working hand in gloves with them. So who can rise? Perhaps Iran can rise, perhaps China could rise. These are the 2 ultimate powers on the globe. Europe is not going to take any risk. Europe can, from the distance, can fund something, give money, help, strategic and all that. Talking about that, we do have a spine, in fact. My friend, Andrew, what's his name? Andrew, his father was a politician as well. He himself was a TD and a present TD of Sinn Féin as well, who actually jumped on the flotilla ship, and the ship was sailed from something like 200, 300 people actually from Ireland, has actually did carry the risk of getting arrested, which they did get arrested when they reached in Gaza, and flotilla ship projects were carrying food for destitute, and they've been immediately arrested Chris Andrews is the name of the gentleman, and whom I'm trying to actually bring into the studio. And they got arrested, and they were released after 6 days. The tactics were applied, the sleepless tactics. They were not allowed to sleep for more than an hour or so, and that kind of nonsense went on. And then eventually, obviously, with the pressure of the Irish embassy in Israel, they managed to get out from that, and they came back safe home. But, this is just a small story of very, very, very brave people. Average Muslim, average Christian, average Hindu. Forget about Hindu, because they are the majority people living in India supporting this war, supporting Benjamin Netanyahu. And so religion is a very big factor here. And I don't want to dwell too much into it. Religious festivals aside, there are a lot of prayers going on, a lot of things going on, but nobody is actually raising a critical voice. And I'm waiting for some individual to rise up and to become some sort of a person, superhero, whatever, to come up and say, hey, guys, it's a time to call it a spade, time to take a legal action, or not legal action, but a physical action against this kind of nonsense. But this is what it is. I mean, I don't know what is the solution. But the other thing is that's happening in New York is something that I would like to talk about that. But and that is on the 4th of July. By the time I will come back next week on the program, perhaps we would have actually we will be seeing the new mayor elected in New York, and that is Zohran. His name is very complicated for a lot of people to pronounce. Mamdani. His name is Zohran Mamdani. Now, I know of his mother, who is a very prolific filmmaker, and she made things like lovely films, like award-winning films like not Slumdog Millionaire, but Salam Bombay. Mira Nair has been to Ireland many times, to Galway Film Fleadh. And Mira's son, he is Mira's son. Mira married to some Mamdani guy from South Africa. They live in New York. He's a scholar and a professor, Professor Mamdani. And their son, who's in 30s, he's a young man. But what he has created is a magic. And really, people are loving him in New York, including cops, including NYPD, and all of them are loving him. And looks like it that he's going to win the election. He's going to win the election of mayor of New York. And now, he was 10 years of age when 9/11 happened. So since then, the Muslim community in New York has suffered, and in America in a big way, in the hands of previous regime and the current regime. So Mamdani says that openly, that if Netanyahu comes to New York, I will arrest him, which is the case, which is the warrant which is out by the International Court of Justice, ICJ. All of that will make it very difficult for a lot of people to understand who is Zohran Mamdani is. Zohran Mamdani is, his father was from India, from the Shia Muslim background, and his mother is, of course, non-religious as such, but coming from a very, very decent background as a filmmaker, as an artist, and a Hindu religious person. I met her a few times. I met her in Cannes, I met her in Delhi, and all that. But Zohran Mamdani is the future of New York. Mark my words. He's streets ahead in the voting poll and all that, and we should be talking about more. And in fact, if he wins the election, we shall be discussing that in the next week. Anyway, I have basically some news to break, and that's news. This is that Zohran Mamdani might be the person who would be winning the election. Anyway, time to play some tracks and songs, and so therefore I would take a break and allow you to sit back and enjoy this particular track, beautiful track that I have chosen for you this morning.
ये हसीन लब नशीले, ये झुकी झुकी निगाहें, तेरे हुस्न ने दिखाई मुझे बेखुदी की राहें। ये हसीन लब नशीले, ये झुकी झुकी निगाहें, तेरी जुल्फ से उठी है ये घटाओं की जवानी। तेरे पास मेरा दिल है, मेरे प्यार की निशानी। मुझे इश्क है तुझी से, न मुझे गमे मुक़द्दर, न मुझे गमे ज़माना। तेरे दम से है सलामत मेरे दिल का आशियाना। न मुझे गमे मुक़द्दर, न मुझे गमे ज़माना। तेरे दम से है सलामत मेरे दिल का आशियाना। रहे उम्र भर जुबां पर तेरे प्यार की कहानी। तेरे पास मेरा दिल है, मेरे प्यार की निशानी। मुझे इश्क है तुझी से। फूलों की महक कांटों की चुभन, तुझे देख के कहता है मेरा मन। कहीं आज किसी से मोहब्बत ना हो जाए, कहीं आज किसी से मोहब्बत ना हो जाए। गुल बदन फूलों की महक कांटों की चुभन, तुझे देख के कहता है मेरा मन। कहीं आज किसी से मोहब्बत ना हो जाए, कहीं आज किसी से मोहब्बत ना हो जाए। हंसी मोड़ पर आ गई जिंदगानी, के हकीकत न बन जाए मेरी कहानी। क्या हंसी मोड़ पर आ गई जिंदगानी, के हकीकत न बन जाए मेरी कहानी। जब आहें भरे ये ठंडी पवन, सीने में सुलग उठती है अगन। तुझे देख के कहता है मेरा मन, कहीं आज किसी से मोहब्बत ना हो जाए, कहीं आज किसी से मोहब्बत ना हो जाए। क्या अजीब रंग में सज रही है खुदाई, के हर चीज मालिक ने सुंदर बनाई। क्या अजीब रंग में सज रही है खुदाई, के हर चीज मालिक ने सुंदर बनाई। नदिया का चमकता है दर्पण, मुखड़ा देखे सपनों की दुल्हन। तुझे देख के कहता है मेरा मन, कहीं आज किसी से मोहब्बत ना हो जाए, कहीं आज किसी से मोहब्बत ना हो जाए। मैं तुम्हीं से यूं आंखें मिलाता चला हूँ कि तुम्हीं को मैं तुमसे चुराता।
क्या मेरे भाइयों, ना किसी से मोहब्बत, ना आज किसी से मोहब्बत हो जाए। Well, I mean, mohabbat is not that bad thing. If it happens, it happens. But it has to be, the most difficult part of mohabbat is that it happens on one side. It has to happen from both sides. Only then it flourishes and it, becomes the meaningful love. Mohabbat is love, by the way. Those who don't know the meaning of it. The film industry has always had written songs about love films. But two individuals, it's not that simple that they should come up and like each other and basically fall in love with each other and end up together, basically. But then again, perhaps the life is not like that. Sometimes you do come across with people, you think that you are going to be in love with them, but then time passes, people fall out, and they go their pear shape, and it doesn't happen. But then something strong happen while they are actually together, and they move towards a permanent, situation of tying the knot, i.e. getting married. Now that is another beautiful thing, because in Indian context, if I talk about it, it is considered that you don't have to be in love with each other in order to get married. Most of the marriages do happen, and then people do come together. Youth, in their youth, mainly in the 20s, 30s, 40s, in fact, and then they start the life together. And while they are doing a life together, they do become the actual lovers and things like that, and they fall in love with each other. That's rare, it happens, but it happens. Anyway, sometimes most of the people who do these sort of things have experienced a blissful life, happy life, and continue. Because in a few years' time, the children come along, and the children actually take the weight of that love, should I call it. And indeed, sometimes the love gets deepened because of children, but the devotion towards the family becomes the priority. Anyway, that is a theory, and in practice as well it happens. But Indian film industry has always acknowledges the love and pyar, muhabbat, whatever you call it. So I might take another track, and you sit back and enjoy this particular track.
रूठा ना करो, बात नजरों की सुनो,
हम ना बोलेंगे कभी, तुम सताया ना करो,
देखो रूठा ना करो। ये वादियाँ, ये फिजाएं बुला रही हैं तुम्हें। ये वादियाँ, ये फिजाएं बुला रही हैं तुम्हें। खामोशियों की सदाएं बुला रही हैं तुम्हें। ये वादियाँ, ये फिजाएं बुला रही हैं तुम्हें। तरस रहे हैं जवां फूल होठ छूने को, तरस रहे हैं जवां फूल होठ छूने को। मचल मचल के हवाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें, मचल मचल के हवाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें, खामोशियों की सदाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें, ये वादियाँ ये फिजाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें। तुम्हारी जुल्फों से खुशबू की भीख लेने को, तुम्हारी जुल्फों से खुशबू की भीख लेने को, झुकी झुकी सी घटाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें, झुकी झुकी सी घटाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें, खामोशियों की सदाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें, ये वादियाँ ये फिजाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें। हसीन चंपई पैरों को जब से देखा है, हसीन चंपई पैरों को जब से देखा है, नदी की मस्त अदाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें, नदी की मस्त अदाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें, खामोशियों की सदाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें, ये वादियाँ ये फिजाएं बुला रही है तुम्हें। मेरा कहा न सुनो इनकी बात तो सुन लो, मेरा कहा न सुनो इनकी बात तो सुन लो, हर एक दिल की दुआएं बुला रही है तुम्हें, हर एक दिल की दुआएं बुला रही है तुम्हें, खामोशियों की सदाएं
रोक सके ना राह हमारी, दुनिया की दीवार।
हाथों में तेरे मेरा हाथ रहे,
हाथों में तेरे मेरा हाथ रहे, जीवन में पिया तेरा साथ रहे, जीवन में पिया तेरा साथ
हाथों में तेरे मेरा हाथ रहे,
हाथों में तेरे मेरा हाथ रहे, जीवन में पिया तेरा साथ रहे, जीवन में पिया तेरा साथ रहे।
Yeah, मेरे भाइयों, जीवन में तेरा साथ रहे, and you're lucky to have somebody throughout your life. If you are passing in the world, yes, it's a passage. In fact, this world is a passage, and you are crossing this world. And sometime, some people will give you a company for a certain period of time, not all the time, not all of the time, but certain period of time. And that's the way the life goes. And eventually, one person goes away, and sometime that time period could be short. But if it achieves the purpose of its existence as coming together, love, care, procreation, all of that, as if it's been provided among each other through the love, then it becomes the worthwhile, living worthwhile. And then life, if the life remains, last for more, then you could hope for another partner. You could have another Jeevan Sathi. Anyway, time is up, and only 1 minute left. Thank you very much for listening to the show. And this is your own Apna Radio, broadcasting at 93.9 Dublin South FM. Bye for now. I'll be back same time, same place next week. And thank you very much, Charmain, for news item, and Sharad Awasthi in London for putting together their contribution to the show. Bye for now.
के साथ तुम्हारा मैंने मांग लिया संसार,
मांग के साथ तुम्हारा मैंने मांग लिया संसार, मांग के साथ तुम्हारा